I am Sunita. I'm the verbal head at GMATViz, and I'm also the lead course architect at GMATViz. Although I became a teacher by accident, but nonetheless, over the last decade or so, I have mentored 30,000 plus students and also discovered that I simply love teaching. I really, really find it very gratifying when I am able to help students achieve their goals. I have scored the 99 percentile in various verbal sections of various exams. Why I'm mentioning verbal sections specifically is, guys, let me not talk about my quant abilities. All right, let me see who all are there. So, hi, Andrew. Hi, Suchet. Hello, Ritvik. Hello, Sushant. Hello, Peter. Hello, Shaurinath. Okay, Shaurinath. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Hi, Yusuf. Hi, Vidya. Hi, Wasim. Wow, this is really nice to see so many of y'all from different places, and I can see a lot more of you are there. Hi, Shubhra. So today we are going to talk about a very, very important area, a very important issue, and the issue is how to reach that high verbal score when you have been stuck at in and around the low verbals. All right, so we're going to talk about that, and right before we talk about that, I'm going to bring up a poll, guys. All right, the poll is basically to establish where we all are at this moment, and just to give me a brief idea about the skill level we all are at. So there's the poll for you guys, and if you don't mind sharing with us here where you are at the current moment, given whatever levels of preparation you are at, it would just give me an idea to go upon, because today's issue is all about breaking the barrier, breaking the plateau, the score plateau that you have reached, and trying to improve your verbal score. So let me see. Let's see when this settles down. Okay. I'm going to wait a couple of seconds more. In the meantime, guys, while you are posting your current verbal scores, I would like to ask you a question, okay? So since today we are all going to talk about our concerns with the verbal section and the verbal score, let me also ask you, what is it about the verbal section that you feel? I'm sure most of you would have self-analyzed what's going wrong with your verbal preparation, why you're not being able to move ahead, why you're not being able to improve. So what is it according to you which is a problem for you? I would like you guys to share your concerns, your problems in the chat box. And in the meantime, let me end the poll here. So today, the lot that is present, 45% of you are hovering between the V30s to the V34. That's early V30s. And 21% of you are between 25 to 29. And some of you are below that. A good number of you haven't really taken any mocks so far, or haven't ever attempted the GMAT. So you don't really know where you stand at. I would suggest find that out. And some of you are actually well positioned about the above V35. So great. Let me see. So let me hear your concerns, guys. I already have got a few concerns here. Ritvik says the options seem confusing. All right. And Shubhra says, ma'am, I'm consistently getting V24, 23. Exactly, Shubhra. Today we're going to address that. And she doesn't know where she's really going wrong, what she's doing wrong. In fact, that's a very, very common concern. All right. Aditya says the verbal is very tough, very different from what we studied in school and colleges. Yes, Aditya. Fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know. My school education, my schooling was, I'm really what I am today because of my teachers. Thank you God for them. So definitely it is different, although. Akriti says RC more than other areas. Okay, Akriti, I think a lot of us would agree with that RCs are more troublesome than the other areas. She says time management is something that's like bothering him. Soumya says time management. Shaurinath says cannot eliminate more than 3 options. Well, Shaurinath, I know how that must feel. Out of 5, if you are left with 3 options, it means that there's something that you're doing horribly wrong. Andrew says, hard CR and hard SC questions give me problems. So Andrew, that kind of suggests that easy and medium questions aren't a problem. So we're also going to talk about why we feel that hard questions are difficult to do. Then Asitima is saying, hi Asitima, she's saying CR is pulling my verbal score down. Shubhra says sentence correction is confusing. Andrew says RC's weakest area. Vidya says time management. She feels stuck and stressed after reaching around questions. Vidya says time management. Peter says sentence corrections, CR are usually 50-50. So Peter has this a typical, plateau of typical kind of, let's put it this way, jam at a 50-50 hit or miss kind of situation. Hi, Umar. Umar says strategy to manage the exam well seems to be a problem. Good, good. Umar, we want to talk about that as well. Rashika says consistently scoring low in CR. Shagnik says having problems in RC mostly. Swati has brought up a very interesting issue. She cannot narrow between the last two options in SC. So guys, what most of you are saying is pretty similar to what I have lined up. Okay. As you have said that you get stuck with two close choices in the end. But have you ever wondered why you get stuck with those choices? And then if you do get stuck, what do you do? What are you supposed to do? So we're going to talk about that. And again, as you said that timing is a problem. I mean, most of you would agree with me that, okay, if I had a lot of time, I would be able to solve this question properly. But it's just because I don't have time, I'm not able to solve the question correctly. Or maybe you would think that you would agree with me that it's the pressure of the time which is kind of killing the question for you. Then again, some of you actually might find correlate with this, that because when I take a lot of private tutoring, and a lot of my students say that I'm okay while I'm practicing the OGs or I'm practicing on the questions, but when it comes to the marks, the scores are not good. And in some cases, even in the scores and the marks turn out to be good, when taking the actual exam, the scores do not tally. And then, of course, some of you might feel that you have studied everything, but you're unable to break that V30 mark, and you don't really know what to do, what else to do to improve your performance. Okay. And then, of course, a lot of you voiced your opinion about RCs. And again, in RCs, I have heard students say that I'm able to do the science topics well, but humanities is just not something I can tackle well. So all these are, if you look at these concerns, they are just the symptom of the disease. They are not the problem. Okay, they are not really the problem. And today's agenda is exactly that. We are going to first understand what the core problem is. See, if you're suffering, let's say you have a stomach ache, okay, and you try some home remedies at first. You take this and you take that, and you try to alleviate the problem. Sometimes the problem is alleviated or reduced for a short period of time, and again it aggravates, and then you rush to the doctor. Does the doctor straight away give you medicines? No. The doctor has to ask certain questions, diagnose, ask you to perform this test, that test, and then once the core problem is identified, then you are prescribed the medicine. So today also we are going to diagnose that all these concerns that you have mentioned, they are not the issue, guys. That's just the sign that there is some very strong, very important underlying problem, and we're going to talk about that problem today. So that's one of the first things that we're going to do. Once we understand what the core problem is, we're going to talk about the solution to overcome that score plateau, that problem. Okay. And post talking about the solution, how to overcome the problem, we're going to talk about how to master that solution. All right. Because the solution itself is not going to help you. You also have to be able to apply that solution. And then we're going to talk about the strategy that you need to adopt to move over to that V40s. All right. And finally, I'm going to close the session with a Q&A session. All right, guys. So let's get started, shall we? Okay, let me look at some of the questions that you have put up here. Let me just go back a little bit. Okay, so Paula, hi Paula. Okay, Paula, so guys, let me also be very clear with you guys. This session is not just about SC or CR or RC, but definitely whatever I'm going to talk about today is going to be applicable to all the sections. And from time to time, we have these webinar series where we do have specific webinars on RC, Paula. So if you just visit our website, you'll get the links to those upcoming webinars. All right. But I'm definitely going to talk about what to do with RCs today as well. Alagu says sometimes could not comprehend why correct answer is correct, wrong answer is wrong. Very good, Alagu. That itself is a symbol of what's really wrong. So, Aditya, I'm going to suggest instead of suggesting good books or material, I'm going to suggest a very good strategy today, Aditya. And I want you to hold on to that thought. Muskan, how should I work to go from and within a week? Well, Muskan, I don't know about within a week or not, but I do hope that I'll be able to address your query throughout the session today. So all of you guys, a request, hold on. Give me the time to develop my idea. And I want you guys to listen to what I have to say with belief, because this is something that I am speaking about from experience. I've mentored 30,000 plus students, guys. Perhaps it would be actually a lot more than that, but that's the only amount of track I've been able to keep. And trust me, no one is different from the other except in terms of dedication. So if you have the dedication, if you have the patience to literally do what I'm going to ask you to do today, you really will be able to break that barrier, break that mark. Okay, so let's get started, guys. Let's start off with our agenda. So first we're going to talk about the core problem. Okay, don't become impatient while I talk at length about it, because this is where everything starts. If you don't understand the problem, you cannot suggest a solution for it. So why do we struggle with verbal? It's not that the timing is an issue. It's not that you can't decide between two choices. It's not that RC is a problem, CR is a problem, SC is a problem. The problem is totally something else. So let's talk about what that problem is. Now, before I talk about that problem, okay, I want you to try to solve this official GMAT question the way you currently solve questions, okay? The way you currently solve any question. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to solve this, and I'm going to bring up a poll. And then I'm going to talk about, then we're going to set about identifying the core problem. So have patience, rather be patient for the time being. Again, I'm going to stress, the class is not about sentence correction, guys. I've taken up a sentence correction to help you identify what that core problem is with your preparation, okay? I will definitely suggest tips, Soumya, but if you really want to talk, because you might be having your own set of issues, if you really want to, you really have a very short amount of time, what you can do is, I'm just sending you the link, and you can set up a free strategy call with our strategy expert Piyush, and I think he'll be able to cater to your particular problems so that you can take the exam successfully in a week. All right, Soumya, you can do that. In the meantime, guys, I'm going to mute myself for 2 minutes, and I'm going to bring up the polls. Solve that question. Go ahead. Polls. There goes 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, Mohit, not an issue. I'll make note of that about your actual choice. Don't worry. All right, guys. So let me end the poll now. 29% of you have voted for A, 40% for B, 18% for C, 9% for D, and 1% for E. Okay, guys. Now, let me build the context for you. Imagine I am the doctor and I'm going to diagnose the problem that you have with the help of this test. So what I'm going to do right now is I am going to solve this question twice. All right, I am going to solve this question twice. Why? The first time I solve it, I'm going to solve it how normally most of you would be solving. Okay, how most students generally approach it. I'm going to use that approach. All right, and I am going to then talk to you about what's wrong with this approach, because this test is going to help me diagnose what is really wrong with why we are not able to break that barrier of verbal 30s, early 30s. Okay, so most students would solve this question like this. They would solve it, by what sounds right. And in fact, you guys would agree with me. So this is how most students would read, and this is what my experience also tells me. So here it goes. Scientists have recently discovered what could be the largest and oldest living organism on Earth. Okay, scientists have recently discovered. So notice how sometimes you read twice the same thing. Scientists have, okay, recently discovered what could be the largest and oldest living organism on Earth. A giant fungus that is an interwoven filigree of mushrooms and root-like tentacles. Okay, a giant fungus that is an interwoven filigree of mushrooms and root-like tentacles, spawned by a single fertilized spore some 10,000 years ago, and extending for more than 30 acres in the soil of a Michigan forest. Now, when I read this, I kind of think that, well, I had somewhere, I had this spawned and extending, and the spawned and extending did not sound right to me. Okay, I think by the sound of it, spawned and extended would be good. All right, and then I would perhaps read the sentence again and kind of try to solve it. All right, this is one approach. So I would then mark extended as my answer, because it would sound better. Instead of, I wouldn't do any more analysis, I would look at what sounded better and I would mark the answer. That would be one way of doing it. Then there is this method which talks about splits. Now you might know it by some other name. This is where students use their grammatical knowledge to solve the question. So for example, in this case, the student would read the sentence as I have read just now. Okay, and after reading that sentence, the student would straight away go to the answer choices and think, okay, what is the difference between these answer choices? All right, it seems that they are talking about different tenses. So the student would be trying to apply the concept of tenses here, and the student would say, okay, extends is simple present and extended is simple past. It extended is also simple past but with a subject, and is extending is present continuous. And then what is extending? Well, there is no helping verb, so not sure what extending is. Maybe that is also present continuous or something like that. And based on this logic, based on this application of the grammatical rules, the student would be kind of looking at the splits of the answer choices, and then the student would think to himself or herself that, okay, this extending for more than 30 acres in the soil of a Michigan forest is a fact. All right, and a fact is always presented with the use of simple present tense. So okay, extends could be a possible answer, and is extending could be a possible answer. All right, and then maybe extended simple past, because I have a spawned here, and therefore possible that extended could also be an answer. So most of the time, and I'm sure, tell me if I'm wrong, some of you were also confused between B and C, or even mostly it was about B and C. Okay, at least the polls clearly tell me that it was between B. 40% of you marked B, 18% of you marked C, some of you also marked A. The point is here, all of you were probably trying to solve it by way of applying the rules, the tenses, or parallelism. Okay, spawned is parallel with extended. All right, and extending doesn't sound correct. all right, and it should be is extending, and so on and so forth. All right. In fact, if I were to bring up the actual attempt data from GMAT Club for this question, this is an official question, 30% of the students actually mark B. And on today's poll itself, we have 40% of the students who have marked B. So today we have 40% of the students who marked B today. Of the 100 odd students that are present in the webinar, 40% of you believe B is the correct answer. All right. And then we have 18% marking C. All right. See how close it is. 18% of you have marked C. And then again, if I say 9% of you have marked D, and 1% of you have marked E. All right. Actual answer is extending, and just 29% of you have marked it. That too, we need to know whether you have marked for the right reasons, or were you just kind of making a sort of educated guess with the help of the sound of it or the parallelism of it. Okay. Now the point here is what's wrong with this approach? What is wrong with this approach? And this is where we are going to identify the core problem. Yes, guys. So would you guys agree with the analysis that I've just made? Did you have a similar experience? Just let me bring up a poll. All the discussion that I had just now, all that I was saying, did you have a similar on and off experience of that sort? Or let me put it this way, do you often have a similar on and off experience like this, where you feel something is right, and a lot of times you apply the rules that you know, the concepts that you know, and yet you find yourself going wrong, and you are like literally scratching your brains. What's wrong? I'm applying all the rules. I'm doing everything possible that I can do. So Wasim, there are, to give you out the exact number, there would be around 110 or so right now, all right? And that's a fairly good enough. If you're talking about the GMAT Club, I don't remember, but it was in thousands, Wasim. In thousands, probably 4,000 or 5,000. That's one of the most attended and controversial, debated questions on GMAT Club. You can search for it. So yes, we are going to talk about what's wrong with this approach. What's wrong with looking for rules? All right. The problem is, why are we following this approach, guys? Most of the time when we are applying the rules, we are basically following one core principle: solve quickly. Let's quickly look at the answer choices. Let's see what the answer choices are saying. Let's see what fits best. All right. And in this, we forget one very important aspect, guys. We forget that there is more to the sentence than just rules. Every sentence correction question has a logical aspect to it, all right? But we don't focus on that. We forget that GMAT is not an English language exam. GMAT, the GMAT verbal section is not known as just verbal section. It's known as verbal reasoning, guys, for a reason. But what happens is, we are so fixated on the time issue that we just try to solve quickly. We read the sentence very, very quickly. If we don't understand, we read it twice or thrice. And then we eliminate the choices based on some application of rules that we know. We don't concentrate on logic, and that is how we land with the wrong answer. That's the core problem. That's the core problem that we try to solve quickly. All right. So timing is not the end problem. It's the beginning of all your problems. You focus so much on time that you don't focus on logic, which could actually save your time, guys, which could have saved you time. All right. So I'm sure most of you would agree with me, would echo what I am saying. Please remember, accuracy, at the end of the day, accuracy is more important than timing. All right. You can complete all those 36 questions in 65 minutes, but if your accuracy is not up to the mark, you're not going to score well. You'll keep roaming around that V29s and V30s, guys, and you'll never move beyond that. So you have to accept that You are pressurizing yourself by that time barrier, and you are trying to solve everything quickly. You're looking for you're looking for band-aid solutions, and you're looking for short-term solutions. They don't work. They really don't work. Okay, it's like, I want to drive a car. Let me sit in the car and let me hold the steering wheel and let me try it this way and that way a couple of times, and I'll learn how to drive. I won't learn that way. I have to learn the hard way. This is one of the core problems. Okay, the other, getting stuck between two close choices. Now I'll bring up a poll, guys. Okay, this is called the best choice trap. Now, how many of y'all believe how many of y'all believe, let me bring up the poll and then I'm going to put my question. How many of y'all believe that there are two close answer choices and one is more correct? Let me put more correct in inverted commas. Be honest with me, guys. How many of y'all believe that of the last two choices that you have been able to whittle down the 5 choices, of the last two, one is more correct? The other is not wrong, but the one of them is more correct for the GMAT test makers, and it's a very subjective decision. In fact, a lot of these institutes actually teach that verbal is a very subjective thing, and there can never be one right way of saying something. There can be multiple ways, and therefore we choose the most correct or the best choice of the two. How many of y'all believe that this issue about best choice, of the two, there is one choice which is a better choice than the other, but the other is also probably correct, but not as correct as the first one? How many of y'all believe in this subjectivity, guys? I want you guys to answer me honestly. Let me bring up the poll. How many of y'all believe that there is always a best choice and there is always a less best choice that ways? How many of y'all believe that? And be honest, because we are trying to look into our souls today to see what is the problem. What is it that we're not doing right? Why is it that we're not moving ahead? Okay. Because for a long time, a lot of my students believe that, they ask this question, Sunita, okay, I'm able to narrow it down to these two, but after this, I believe both can be correct. All right. But okay, this is more correct. Well, guys, let me end the poll. Thank you for sharing your real feelings, guys. 60% of you believe that there is something called a better choice than the other choice. 40% of you don't believe in that. All right. Herak, hi. Yes, a recording of this will be provided. If you have registered for this webinar using your email ID, Herak, we will be posting the recording. You'll get the link to that recording. Don't worry. Okay. And this best choice trap is the worst trap, guys. Please believe. I really, really want you to believe there is always one right answer and the others are wrong. Plain wrong. They are not less correct or not a better choice. They are just plain wrong. And the moment you believe this, you will be able to see water for water and milk for milk. As long as you keep thinking, I'm able to bring it down to the last two, and it's just that I'm not able to, I always pick the second best one. As long as you keep saying that to yourself, you're not going to make a you're not going to make a progress. Okay. So when you do this, you narrow it down to the last two, and then you just you choose one and you find that's incorrect. You tell yourself, I have just chosen the second best one. What you're doing is, number one, you're accepting something that is wrong. You're accepting it as the next best choice. And the moment you do that, you are losing out on the opportunity of understanding what is actually right and why it is right. You're missing something that is right, guys. Okay. So this is something that you've got to stop doing. So number one, you've got to stop letting that time pressure force you into just solve a question very superficially. And second is, you're not going to fall in this best choice trap. You'll tell yourself, every time you get a question wrong, you tell yourself, I got it wrong because I was not able to analyze, or I was not able to understand something, or I did not approach the question right. It's basically the approach, guys. It's always the approach. Okay. So what is the solution? Solution is, we need to find the right way of approaching these questions. Please remember, again, I'll spell it out like very, very clearly. Okay. Stop looking for band-aid solutions. Stop looking for stopgap solutions. Stop looking for short-term solutions. Stop looking for quick fixes. Look for a correct method, all right? Something that you can apply again and again and again and again and get the question right. There has to be something, okay? All right. So what is that solution? Now, remember the question that I posted earlier and where we got the, 29% of you marked A, 40% of you marked B, and then I had 18% of you marking C and so on. I'm going to show you how this question really should be solved. How at GMAT Viz we teach students to solve this question. The approach, the meaning-based approach as we call it. So here when we solve every question, every SC question is solved the same way. We don't read the sentence in one long shot. We always break down the sentence in small portions. We read that small portion, we understand that small portion, we digest that small portion, and then we move to the next portion. And you'll see, we are not looking for errors, guys. We don't actively try to look for errors. We try to look for the meaning. While trying to understand the meaning, we realize that, oh, here is an error. See, guys, think about it like this. When you put a morsel of food, let's say you're sitting on the dinner table, and you dig your spoon into the food, and you pick up some food and put in your mouth, are you actually thinking, okay, my food might contain some stones? No. But when you're chewing properly, if you're chewing properly, the stone will come under your teeth and you'll realize, oh, there is some stone. But if you don't chew properly, if you put a lot of food in your mouth and hurriedly swallow some of it, you'll swallow the stone. So when you solve a question very quickly, without chewing upon the words properly, without chewing upon the meaning, you're going to just swallow that error. You're not going to be able to spot it. Your brain will auto-correct the error, All right. How about that? I like that analogy. Okay. I hope you did too and you can identify with it. So here goes how the question should be approached. Scientists have recently discovered, all right, so we have some scientists and they have made a recent discovery. I have my subject verb paired here. What have they discovered? They have discovered what could be, all right, the largest and oldest living organism on Earth. So this whole thing is a proper independent clause. It's a proper sentence. But I have a comma, so I'm expecting something else will come up after that, which is perhaps going to extend the meaning of the sentence or add to the meaning of the sentence. All right. A giant fungus. So clearly I say, okay, a giant fungus is probably referring to this organism because there's nothing else to connect it otherwise. That is an interwoven filigree. Filigree, by the way, means a network, guys. All right, of mushrooms and root-like tentacles. Okay, so if I look at this portion, this is giving me, this whole thing is giving me some additional info about this giant fungus, which is the largest and oldest living organism on Earth. So this part is a modifier for the giant fungus. All right. And so far my sentence is complete, right? There's nothing really, it's not even underlined. So the meaning that I've got is scientists have discovered a very old organism, a huge organism. That organism is a giant fungus. This giant fungus is a interwoven network of mushrooms and root-like tentacles. I'm literally imagining a huge fungus with lots of mushrooms, part of that huge fungus with lots of tentacles, part of that huge fungus. I'm doing that. Okay. Spawned by a single fertilized spore some 10,000 years ago. And I stop here. And I say, okay, what is the function of this part? What is the function of this part which starts with spawned by? And I quickly ask myself, is this spawned a verb? Okay. Or is it a verbal? Is it a modifier? And we have this small, test at GMAT Viz. We ask our students to question, okay, put this question, what spawned? And if you get a logical subject as the answer, then it's a verb. If we don't get a logical subject as the answer, it's not a verb. So if I ask the question, what spawned? The answer that arises is giant fungus spawned, right? And I ask myself, did the giant fungus spawn something, or was the giant fungus spawned by? All right. So I'm asking that to myself. Is the fungus doing the action of spawning? No. Shouldn't it be fungus was spawned? So I understand that spawned is also a modifier. One second, guys. Spawned is also a modifier for the giant fungus. All right. In a way, and it is lying right next to this root-like tentacles and mushrooms, and therefore it must also be. So indirectly, it's telling us that this interwoven filigree of mushrooms and root-like tentacles, these are spawned by a single fertilized spore. And then I have an and here. Okay, just give me a moment, guys. I'll just have a sip of water. Just give me a moment. Thank you, guys. That was quick. All right. So let's continue. As I was saying, and there I have an and here. So I know that this extending has to be also a modifier, which is going to be parallel with spawned. Okay. And I say, okay, a giant fungus spawned by a single fertilized spore, a giant fungus extending for more than 30,000 acres in the soil of a Michigan forest. So this is a verbal. This also should be a verbal, which it is, because there is no helping verb there. And I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the meaning. Clearly, spawned is not a verb, it's a modifier. So extending should also be a modifier, and that sorts the problem. So I go by the meaning approach. I'm not like literally applying all the rules at the same time. What I'm just doing is I'm trying to read the sentence in bits and parts. I'm trying to understand the meaning. I'm trying to see whether the meaning is clear and logical. I'm asking questions on the way. And if it is not clear and logical, I am sorting that out by my questions. And that is how I am deciding whether it should be a verb which comes in place of extending, or extending is good to go. And that is how I eliminate my choices. All right. That is how I know that, all right, a giant fungus spawned by something and extending, and therefore this is correct and the others are incorrect. All right. So let me see if I have any questions here. So Ashay, sorry. For a giant fungus, you have a relative pronoun clause starting with that. So the is after that is a verb for giant fungus, but that is a part of the relative pronoun modifier. It is not a independent clause that we have there, Ashay. So Palli, is extending will work if spawned is a verb. Remember, if you're talking about if we are describing a subject, then the two entities that are being used to describe the subject should be both modifiers. If I say is extending, then is extending becomes a verb and spawned remains a verbal, which is illogical. Krishanu, I think you will. Usually we make sure that the recordings are available to all our students, to all the attendees of the webinar. Palli, I hope the question is answered for you. In fact, Palli, think about it. If it is extending is correct, then why not extended? Extended will also be correct because extended is a simple past tense. It should work. But the whole point is spawned by is a modifier. Then we have an and. So the entity after and should also be a modifier. Yes, Shrutya. Actually, spawned is placed next to root-like mushrooms and tentacles, and directly it modifies root-like mushrooms and tentacles. Indirectly, it modifies giant fungus. All right, Shrutya, good question. So the point, guys, is that you need to have a correct approach. Then only you can move out of that the rut that you have fallen in. That verbal 30s, low V30s, or even less than V30s. In fact, guys, there's a question here for you. What did you find different between the way you approach the question and the way I solved the question. Come on. Yes, Arindam, verb ed and verb ing modifiers can be parallel if they are modifying the same entity, because both are noun modifiers. Wasim, yes, only two modifiers can be in and. I mean, and can join. You can have x, comma, y, and z. But if you just have x and y, then only that and is joining only two modifiers. That has the subject is, and that is referring to giant fungus. So in a way, is a verb for giant fungus in a way, indirectly, and is also the verb for that which is referring to giant fungus. All right. So you can't have a separate verb here. Please understand, there was an independent clause Ashay before giant fungus. So the portion after the independent clause is not an independent sentence. It's just a modifier. We call it a flexible modifier at GMAT Viz. Yes, Arushi, reading the sentence in one go is the worst thing that you can do, whether the sentence is long or short. You should always make sure that you break down your sentence into bite-sized pieces. I'm going to talk about that right now. Always make sure that you break it down into simple portions, understand that simple portions. In fact, you can, I have posted the free trial link, guys. I have posted the free trial link of our course, the free trial version, and you can try it out. You can see, you can sample how we teach, how you should break a sentence and read. All right. So Wasim, you have to practice. All you need is practice. X and Y are two different entities. X. So for example, I can say giant fungus is big, comma, beautiful, and let's say something like lovely. So three modifiers. So over here we had just two modifiers, spawned and extending. The comma before and, I mean, honestly speaking, that is usually there when we are talking about a clause. So Wasim, you need to practice it. All right. Without speaking, you need to practice mentally breaking down, because in the exam, they might not allow you to murmur and speak. All right. So you need to practice doing it in your head, and that is going to help you. So Mohan, extended here, I mean, extended here would also mean that it's a verb. It could mean the giant fungus extended, you know, and because of that confusion, we are not using extended here. Extended could look like a verb, could look like a verbal, and that kind of ambiguity is not allowed, Mohan. So you in terms of parallelism, there is no rule which says ed has to be parallel with an ed verbal only, or ing has to be parallel with an ing verbal only, not unless ing is modifying a verb. Okay. So is an interwoven, Mrinal, is a subject for that, and we have only one that, and there is and the and extending is coming after spawned. Therefore we can't ignore spawned and jump straight to that. I'll just post the link once again. Just give me a moment, Andrew. Let me copy the link address. Guys, I have posted the link to the free trial version in the chat box, and I'll again post, if you want to set up a strategy call with our strategy expert, a free call, there is a link for that too there. Okay. So that was, yeah, you guys were going to share with me what was different between your approach and the approach that I used. Go ahead. Tell me in the chat box. I would love to hear from you. What was different about your approach when you solve it? I'll take you back to my approach and this approach. What was different? Because this is the realization which is going to help you break that barrier. Yes. Go ahead, guys. Yes, Mrinal, you're absolutely right. A giant fungus, that is something, 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 and that extends. Absolutely. Yes, guys, what is different about the way you solve an SC question and about the way this SC question was solved? I took my time. I broke the sentence. What do you do? Go ahead, tell me. I would love to hear from you guys. I'm waiting. Okay. Hi, Peter. I look at that is, realize that is the verb, and then look for a modifier that would match that. Okay. So, and what did you do, Peter, when you did not find another that? Wasim says, I was comparing tense of spawn. I know, Wasim. That's a very common mistake that we make when we know the rules, but we don't look for the logic behind the rules. So applying rules blindly doesn't work, Wasim. All right. And again, the whole issue is you try to look for rules, you will lose out on logic. But if you look for logic, you will not lose out on rules. You will not lose out on meaning. So thank you, Peter and Wasim, for sharing your thoughts. Andrew says, find the role of spawned and extending our playing in the sentence. Very good, Andrew. That's exactly the approach that I also used. Very good. And if that is the approach you keep using for all questions, that's going to work for you beautifully. Shrutya says, yours is a more logical approach, meaning based of trying to fit meaning through rules. Shrutya, that's a very, very wise and very nice way to put it. Shrutya says she was trying to fit meaning through rules, whereas I was trying to find rules through the meaning. So meaning first, then rules is the best way. Thank you, Shrutya, for putting it that way. All right, guys. So now that was all about the problem, the reason why we are not able to score well in SC. We get stuck between two choices. All right. How do you approach RCs, guys? Now, again, in my experience, while mentoring students, taking private tutoring sessions, talking to students through the forums and different platforms during my webinars, I keep getting these, students asking me, how should I improve my RC? A lot of you asked. So before I answer that question, guys, okay, let me bring up a few approaches that I have found very popular among students. Approach one, read the first. I mean, I've heard people say these things. Trust me. So they say, read the first and last line of every paragraph and jump to the questions. Okay. Look at the questions and then jump back to the paragraph and keep jumping up and down, back and forth. Another approach is read the passage quickly in 2 minutes. Quickly. Take a mental note of what lies where, just a brief understanding of the passage structure, and then you refer back to the passage for every question. So every time you look at a question, and of course you have just read the passage briefly and you just know what is where, and you keep going back to that portions and rereading those parts. And there's then another approach where you read the question first so that you know what you're looking for, and then go and read the passage. Okay, so what I want to ask you guys is, which approach do you guys use? Let me bring up a poll for that. Hold on a second. Just give me a second. I'm going to bring up a poll for that. In the meantime, let me look at some questions. Pooja says there are so many rules in English language. So Pooja, at GMATViz, you can again, as I've already posted the link for the free trial, Pooja, you can visit it and see that we don't teach you too many rules. We just teach you the logic behind every rule so that you can remember that. And you'll find that we have simplified a lot of technical terms. We don't want to teach you grammar as such. We want to teach you how to crack the GMAT SC grammar. Okay, so it's like that. So it's not like you have to learn all the rules. It doesn't work that way. And GMAT is more meaning based. You will find your GMAT, you are evaluated in GMAT both on grammar and on communication. Okay, let me see which approach most of you use here. Let me wait for a moment. Okay. So I'm going to end the poll now. All right. 5% of you, okay, you use the first approach, which means you read the first line and last line of every paragraph, and then you go to the questions, and then you come back for the answers. For identifying the answers, you come back to the passage, because you just have read the first and the last line and you haven't read the passage. Majority of you, 63% of you, read the passage very quickly, and then you take a mental note of what is where. You sometimes even make some brief notes, and then you come back to the passage for every question. All right. And when you come back for the passage, you probably read the passage again, some portions of it. And then there are 31% of you who read the question first. Tell me, guys, so given that most of you use the second approach and the third approach, here's another question for you. Does your approach work? Let me just put that answer there. Question. Does the approach work? Again, be honest. When I say does the approach work, I'm not saying sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. When I say does the approach work, does it work for, let's say, 80% of the time? Do you get your answers correct 80% of the time? Anything less than 80, that's not an approach which is working for you, because 50-50 is a hit and miss. Sometimes you hit, sometimes you miss. It could be because of anything. An approach working means it works all the time for you. Vamshi says the approach works but can't solve in under 2 minutes. Yes, Vamshi, you can't solve it because you keep going back to the passage again and again. That's what I mean by the approach doesn't work. The approach doesn't work, guys, and the approach does not work primarily because you are confused about the meaning. Because you read your passage very, very quickly, you're confused. All right. And because you're confused, you need to refer to the passage again and again. You reread the passage again and again. I don't know why you quickly read the passage. 63% of you say you spend 2 minutes reading the passage. Actually, you're spending more than 2 minutes, because you're coming back to the passage again and again and again and again, at least 4 times for 4 questions, which means add that passage reading time to your original reading time and see how much time you're actually taking to read the passage. What happens is, if you keep referring, in fact, today evening, I had a session with a student, good student actually. He's already scored around a V35, V36 on the GMAT, but he wants to score a V40, 41, and that is why he's taking private tutoring with me. And what happened there was, I noticed that he would read the passage, and I was just taking a test of what approach he's using currently. And he would read the passage quickly, and then while answering the question, he wouldn't be sure whether he's read the information correctly or not, and he would go back to the passage and again recheck. So if you're that low on confidence, you will end up marking the wrong answer. Sometimes it's going to be a good guess, sometimes it's going to be a bad guess. All right, and that just won't work. These are some of the problems you'll face in the RCs. So please, you have to understand, guys, what does GMAT RC test? Okay, you have to understand that 85% of the RC questions on GMAT are inferential in nature. Inferential means it's not going to be literally, explicitly written out in black and white all the time. All right, you will have to read between the lines to answer these kinds of questions. All right, 700 level questions will test you for an overall, what we call global inference, not the local inference. All right, and every time you go back to the passage, you're going back for local inference. But when you read the passage properly, you're reading to get the overall meaning, to get a complete meaning, to get an in-depth meaning, so that you can answer questions like, what will the author most likely agree with, or what is the function? Nowhere in the passage you will find the function of this word is so and so. Okay, which of the following is against the author's opinion won't be outrightly given to you. The main point, it won't be written like some in big bold letters. Oh, this is the main point. So please understand, guys. All right, what happens is the local inference traps are there. What are these traps? Some familiar words are given in the answer choices, and you're trapped by that. you look at those familiar words and you think this choice is most closely aligned with the passage, and therefore let me mark this. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. What works, and again let me repeat, you want to move out of that V30s trap, which means, V30s plateau, which means you want to move, you want to get questions which are difficult. Not only get questions which are difficult, you want to be able to solve those questions properly so that you're able to score higher on the exam. And for that, the only thing works. A lot of you asked me what to do with RCs, guys. Follow involved and evolved reading. Try out our free trial version to get a taste of what that is. In short, I'm going to mention. And again, initially, it will be time consuming when you are training yourself to read like this. But once you're trained, this becomes second nature. It's like when you were learning how to drive a car, it took you time to coordinate your gears and your clutches and your accelerators and your steering wheels and your rear view mirrors and your front view mirror or whatnot. But now when you sit down to drive, everything is like muscle memory. So you want to get you want to reach that level. Okay, you want 700 plus, you need to deserve that score, you need to work hard to deserve it. So involved and evolved reading is all about thinking like the author. Okay, you literally put yourself in the author's shoes and you read the passage. You try to understand what is the author trying to tell here. Why is the author writing this here? What is the purpose? And for that, you break sentences into small chunks, much like we showed you on that SC question. You break a sentence into small parts, you derive the meaning of that small part, and like that, you understand the meaning of the full sentence. Once you have understood the meaning of that full sentence, you read the next sentence, and then you put the two sentences together to understand as a whole what the author was trying to say. See, you're forming an algorithm, a flow chart. Okay, all right. The author introduced a claim, then he supported the claim, then he introduced an opposing idea, and then he challenged that idea, then he again supported his claim, and like that. You are trying to understand what the author is trying to tell you. You're not just barely reading the passage. You're putting together the ideas. You're using transition words and conjunctions to help you understand the passage. And GMAT passages are literally, spattered with transition words like firstly, secondly, however, but, thereby, moreover, furthermore, and so on. The final aim is to summarize the paragraph and then summarize the passage overall, okay, to get at all. So if you do this, you will be able to answer all questions with ease, guys. All right. This is what you need to do when you are looking at involved reading. And again, I'm going to tell you, this will take time initially, time consuming initially. But then, guys, you were actually taking a lot of time when you were going back and forth. Now you were anyways taking time. So I would suggest, but the accuracy was falling there. Here, at least, if you take the same amount of time also, but give it all in one dedicated go for reading the passage initially and then going into the questions, you will save time. All right. I'm sure, and this was the question, why do you get hard questions wrong? Like you guys, Vamshi was saying just a while back, right, that I can the RC method works for me, but not in under 2 minutes. Exactly. You begin to believe that I can get the hard questions right if I just had enough time. All right, that is what you tell yourself, but no. And in trying to do that, you try to ask yourself, how do I solve it quickly? You cut corners while you're reading the question. You cut corners when you're reading the passage. You cut corners when you're reading the stimulus. You cut corners when you're analyzing the original sentence. All right. And you think the answer is in the choices. So let's spend time there. No. The time that has to be spent is where the question begins. If it's an RC passage, read the passage properly. If it's a CR problem, read the stimulus carefully. If it is a sentence correction question, read the original sentence carefully, guys. Okay? Let's see how. Core problem with time. Now, this is, let me explain what happens really. You read the question stem quickly. Let's say it's an SC question. You read the question stem quickly. If it's a passage, you read the passage quickly. If it's a stimulus, you read the stimulus quickly. And then you have a rough understanding of what is stated, and with that rough understanding, with that half-baked understanding, you move to eliminate the choices. Despite the half-baked understanding, you are able to eliminate 2 to 3 choices. You are left with 2 choices. You're stuck with 2 choices, right? What do you do at this stage, guys? What do you do? Come on, answer me in the chat boxes. Chat box. What do you do? Soumya, I promise you time will be sufficient. I'll talk to you about the time irony in a while. Just hold on to that thought. I'll talk to you about that. You feel that you're saving time by solving the questions quickly, by trying to read the sentence, right? Read the paragraph quickly. You're not saving time. Yes, tell me, what will you do? What do you normally do when you get stuck between 2 to 3 close choices? What do you do? Wasim says, go back to the passage. What else? Peter says, go back to reread the passage. If it's a sentence correction, what do you do? If it's a stimulus, what do you do? Go ahead, share with me, guys. So Peter and Wasim admit that if they get stuck between 2 to 3 choices, they go back to the passage. That means the time that they tried to save, the time they tried so hard to save, right? You actually eventually, ironically, land up taking that time. But the second time when you go back to the passage, is your understanding always clearer? Aditya says he eliminates the wrong choice. Yes, Aditya. When I was a student, I too faced the same problems. Okay. And then I understood what I was doing wrong. Good. So Aditya says, and I think this is where what most of us would land up doing. We would eliminate, we would reread the question, or we would reread the choices multiple times, waste some time there, and then mark some answer as time is running out. Sometimes that answer turns out to be correct. Sometimes that answer may not turn out to be correct. So you really think, you're taking 20-30 seconds to read the question stem quickly. And with that rough understanding, you are taking another 20-30 seconds to eliminate 2-3 choices. You're taking another 20-30 seconds when you get stuck between 2-3 close choices. But then you take 60 to 90 seconds to reread the passage or the question or the multiple choice, which means all in all, you're actually taking this much time. You tried to solve the question in this much time, this much time, this much time, but you actually took overall this much time. Why? What's wrong? Wrong approach. Reading the question stem, reading the passage, reading the stimulus quickly is wrong, 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 wrong. Okay? It's wrong, guys. Worrying about the timing is actually it's a wrong way to look at the timing thing. Okay? I mean, the time-saving irony. Now, here it is, Soumya, for you, for all the others. Most of you, right, you read too quickly in the first read. You say, okay, I'm going to finish reading the whole thing in 2-3 minutes. And then I'm going to get a rough idea of what's there. And then I'm going to reread when I'll reread if I need to reread. And this is what you do. You take about a minute and a half or even more than that per question. So what you land up taking per passage is 8 to 9 minutes and sometimes even more. But a top scorer, okay, how do they read? They read the passage properly the first time around. They invest that time because they know that they'll be able to save time later because they had a crystal clear understanding because they devoted time in the first read. And they're able to eliminate choices confidently and take less time. So overall time spent, if you see, not much of a difference. But in terms of confidence and accuracy, huge difference, huge difference. Accuracy, confidence, and the confidence that you get when you mark a question with full understanding reflects on the other questions as well. I'm sure it's happened often with you that you solved a passage, you solved the question, but inside I'm not sure of the answer. It may be wrong, and that kind of affects your performance on the other questions as well. So it's just ironical. What you try to save, you sacrifice the most. All right. So timing is not something that you try to tackle first. What you try to tackle first is understanding. Okay, time will automatically be saved as a byproduct. You won't have to try very hard, guys. We need to learn the right method. In SEU, learn to need the meaning driven approach. In CR, you need to understand how to use frameworks for pre-thinking so that you save time there. In RC, you need to practice the involved and evolved reading, guys. Okay, this is what you have to do in order to make sure that you are learning the right methods. Unless and until you have the right method, you will be stuck where you are. All right. So we've spoken about the core problem. We've spoken about the solution. The solution is learn the right method, guys. Okay. At GMATViz, we focus on the meaning driven approach for each and every sentence correction question there. We have these frameworks that we have designed specifically to solve CR questions based on plan and goal, on causality, on comparison, on quant. And in RC, we have this involved and evolved reading where we have a lot of techniques to show you how to go about it. How to master this approach. Now, let's say you have learned the right, you're learning the right approach, provided you are learning the right approach. The next thing that is very, very important is you have to become a master at that approach. It's not enough if you want to participate in a race, in a car race, in a car rally, and you want to win also. It's not enough that you know how to drive. You have to be a master at driving, right? How to become a master at driving, guys? Well, what most students do is they practice. They practice a lot of questions, question after question, question after question, question after question. Then they take mocks, 1 mock, 2 mock, 3 mocks, 4 mocks. You don't learn from questions, guys. You don't learn from mocks also. You learn from solutions. You learn from solutions, guys. And how do you review solutions? How do you, guys, come on, share with me. How do you analyze solutions and when do you analyze solutions? All right, I have some more problem. Peter says most of the time I would say rereading helps. If not, I just make educated decision. Peter, again, if you're aiming for a 720 plus score, guesses won't get you there. Accuracy can come only when we understand. Yes, Wasim, absolutely. I'll send you the free trial link, Andrew. I'm just copying it and I have pasted it again in the chat box, Andrew. So I hope you get it. Mohit says, I can definitely say. So I'm just going to read out what Mohit is saying. He says, he can definitely say that Sunita ma'am's approach toward GMAT Verbal is amazing. Thank you so much, Mohit, for that vote of confidence. A lot of thought has been given in curating the course. So there speaks our student. Thank you, Mohit, for that vote of confidence. And it depicts her content. One can ace GMAT pretty easily by following her methodologies and frameworks. Mohit, thank you so much. And thank you so much. That's all I can say. Thank you so much. So Andrew, I hope you get that link there, out there. Yes, guys. So I want you guys to share with me how you analyze your solutions. What do you do if you get your questions wrong? Or, what do you do? How do you master the approach, whatever approach you're following? How do you analyze the solution, guys? Thank you, Hitakshi. Nice to see you. Approach is key. Absolutely. Yes, guys. So how do you analyze solutions? How do most of you analyze solutions? What do you do? I'm waiting. So you have practiced lots of questions. You have taken mocks. How do you analyze the solutions, guys? Nobody's answering. Don't you analyze the solutions at all? I think I'll have to bring up a poll for that. Do you analyze solutions at all? Do you analyze solutions, guys? So Deepak says he maintains an error log. Okay, so by error log, Deepak, so you just jot down what is the correct, I mean, which questions you got right, which questions you got wrong. Or Andrew says he looks at the logic used to find the solution. So Andrew, do you do this for all questions, or you do this for the questions that you get wrong? Aditya says only when he is confident he analyzes the solutions. Okay. Bamshi says he searches for the question on GMAT Club and finds the reason why his chosen answer is wrong, which means you look for the solutions when you get an answer wrong. But what about getting the question right and analyzing? Deepak also says why the questions were right or wrong. Okay, Deepak does both. So Deepak tries to find out the reason why it was right as well as why it was wrong. So good, good. So I'll just quickly mention how most students analyze. They only review the question they got wrong. See, you might be doing this, you might not be doing this. You might sometimes be doing this, sometimes not doing it. But the point is, this doesn't work. If you're reviewing the questions that you got wrong, and especially you're spending time only on option analysis, you're missing out, guys. You won't improve your score doing that. What you need to do is, I'll tell you what you need to do. Let me again repeat. If you're only reviewing the questions when you get them wrong, or if you're spending time only analyzing why I got this choice wrong, why I got this choice right, it's not going to help you improve the score. What is going to help you improve the score, what is going to help you master the approach is, you need to refer to solutions that follow a consistent and logical method. Every solution should be written out in the same manner. GMAT Club has these random solutions. Okay, there are a lot of good discussions as well, I will admit. But none of the solutions are written out in the same way, right? Somebody gives you some logic, somebody gives you some other logic, somebody gives you a rule, somebody gives you an idiom, somebody else gives you a structure, but there is no consistent and logical method. At GMAT Ways, for every sentence correction question, for every RC question, for every CR stimulus, there is the same method used in and out, in and out, in and out. And by following the same method, verifying why you got each question wrong using the same consistent method helps you focus properly, helps you master the approach, okay? Because you're doing the same thing repetitively. You have to verify each question irrespective of whether you get it right or wrong, and verify it using the same method, so that you know that you're whether you're improving on the logic or whether you're not improving on the logic. All right. And as I said, at GMAT Ways, every question, every solution is written out in a very, very, very similar manner, detailed manner. You should spend 80% of your time reviewing if it's a sentence correction question, reviewing the original sentence. If it's a CR question, you should spend 80% of your time reviewing the argument to understand, did you understand the argument correctly? You should spend 80% of your time on your passage analysis. You see, majority of the time should be spent on the beginning of that question and not on the answer choices only. All right. You have to note down the variances in your approach. You have to understand where, I mean, let's say you have a solution written out in front of you. You've solved a question. Now you are going through the solution of that question, even though you got the question right. And you're trying to match your thought process with what is written out in the solutions. Okay, the right solution. And then you see, oh my God, I deviated from you. I got the question right, but I didn't think of it like this. I didn't get this logic. I missed out here. These are the things that are going to help you master the right approach. Next time you do the similar kind of question, you're not going to miss out on the logic. Okay, that increases your chances of getting that question right. Here is a sample of a GMAT Whiz question, guys. CR question. It's a GMAT Whiz question. I'm going to give you some time to read the stimulus. I'm not asking you to solve the question. I am not asking you to solve the question. Okay, this is a screenshot of one of our questions. I want you to read the stimulus here. Okay, and then I'm going to show you how you should check the solutions to master the approach. Read it. I'm just going to mute myself. Yes, Arvindam. So Aditya, you can schedule a call with Piyush to take classes with me. I'll just give you the link. The link is already there, Aditya, but I'm just posting it for you again. You can set up a call with Piyush, a free call with Piyush on Calendly, and he's going to arrange for classes with me. You'll have to talk to him about the private tutoring with him. Yes, Deepak, we need to know whether we're getting the questions right for the right reasons. So I'm going to keep quiet, sorry. So let's say you read a stimulus, all right, now, and you solve this question. Now, how should you check whether your method of solving the question was correct, whether your approach was correct, whether you were getting the logic correctly? So let's say this is a sample of how the solutions are written out at GMATViz for every question. Okay, now how should you review the solution? Now, this is the first sentence of the stimulus. Okay, and here is the explanation here. And here we are reaching the inference. You ask yourself, did I reach this inference after I read this sentence here? Was I able to break it down and reach this inference? If I was not, then I have not used the approach correctly. Similarly, when you read the second sentence, if you were not able to draw this inference, then you have not read the statement correctly. All right. If you have not reached this inference here after reading this sentence, all the three sentences, you have not read the question stem correctly. All right. If you were not able to draw this conclusion, it means something is heavily wrong with your analysis. All right. So when you are matching your thought process with such detailed solution written in the same manner again and again and again, you are training yourself to master the approach. You're training yourself to think in a certain manner. All right. And every time you deviate from that manner, the solution is there to remind you that you are doing something wrong. All right, guys. And as Arindam says, every question is different, but the approach has to be the same, Arindam. That is the beauty of our platform. And you can try it out the free trial link, to look at some of these solutions and some of the questions that we have out there. All right, guys. So, as I said now, that you have to have the right methods, the right approach. In fact, let me share with you something else. Here is the story of one of our students, guys. Akshat improved from 650 to 730 in just 24 days. And I'm going to post the link of his debrief in the chat box for everybody. You can check out his interview also. And through his interview, we realized what he did, okay, in order to reach that score in that amount of time. He improved his understanding of the methodologies. That is, he went through each and every framework. All right, he reviewed solutions in depth for the correct questions too. So from one question to the other, he kept on improving his understanding of the method behind that question. And every time he solved the question, he reviewed the solutions in depth, even for the correct questions. He tried to identify what kind of answers he was choosing, and he tried to identify what kind was there a pattern in the incorrect answer choices that he was choosing. These are some of the buckets that we prepare for incorrect answers. He did that. He identified his weak areas, strong areas, and every time he identified the weak area, he revisited it to improve his understanding. So bit by bit, he built that palace of 730 in 24 days, just 24 days. The link is out there for you to see a complete debrief of his journey, guys. All right, it's not just what we are saying, it's what he is saying. And Aditya, it is okay, and we have derived different frameworks for different kinds of questions, don't worry, but essentially it's always a three-step approach. Analyze the stimulus, analyze the stimulus and the question stem, okay, then pre-think, and then analyze the answer choices for CR questions. Then analyze the passage, all right, get a summary of the paragraphs, get the flow of information, get the main idea, and then go for each question where again you pre-think and eliminate answer choices. And same thing for the sentence correction questions also. The approach, the methodology is same, meaning-based, logic-based approach. All right, Aditya? All right, let me move forward. So right method holds the key, and Akshat's is just one example. We have Rajiv, who was stuck at 680, all right, at a V34, much like many of you are stuck. And after and he spent over a year and a half. He tried all courses, and I'm going to name some of them, whether it was Manhattan, Magoosh, GMAT, Crack Verbal, you name it. And that is the time he came to us. And within a few months, he improved to 740. He got a V41 on the verbal. Vamshi started off with a 570 with a low V26, but within 10 months he improved to 720. All right, and the last few months is where he was journeying with us. He got a verbal 38. So all of them, what they did was they followed the right approach. They identified their problems, they worked on the weak areas, they mastered the solution, they mastered the approach. Now, finally, we're going to talk about the strategy to score V40. So we've spoken about the core problem, we've spoken about the solution, we've spoken about how to master the solution. Now let's get down to the basic question. What is the strategy to score a high verbal? How to create the right plan of action? All right, let's see. Now, if you're already scoring 66, 70 or more, there are certain factors. So that means you're already in a good space, but this last leg of the journey is the hardest. And there are some factors that need to be considered here. What is the time available? How much time you're able to devote? If you're a working professional, you wouldn't be having much time to devote. What is your target score? And what other resources you've already utilized? Okay, what is your background? How have you reached that 670? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What are the methods that you have used? What is your learning style? All of these are very personalized factors, and it is better to schedule a one-to-one discussion. I'm going to post the link where you can set up a one-to-one call, a free call with our strategy expert, Piyush. All right. If this is where you are, this is the slot where you are, then you need to set up a free call with Piyush. All right. He will be able to talk to you in a very, cater to, these are some factors which could be very different for different people. So he will talk to you accordingly to identify what needs to be done. All right. Now, what should be the sequence of studying? And for the others, what should be the sequence of studying for verbal? Well, for verbal, you need comprehension skills. If you look at the kind of questions you are being tested on, all right, some of the basic skills that you're being tested upon are comprehension skills, analytical reasoning, and focus on the main point. And this you can see through your sentence correction questions, through your critical reasoning questions, through your RC questions, which are, so we know that in sentence correction, all you need is the comprehension skills. There, the issue of main point or analytical reasoning does not arise. So you should start with studying, with mastering sentence correction. Once you have mastered sentence correction, then you will take the comprehension skills to the CR portion where you will be developing your analytical reasoning as well, because you need both these skills to master CR. And once you have mastered CR and SC, you take all the skills and you move on to bettering your skill of focusing on the main point, that is RC. Therefore, It means that first you start with SC in order to master the skills of comprehension, breaking your sentences, contextualizing, reading, understanding the meaning. Thereafter, you move to CR. Once you move to CR, you learn to relate two or more sentences and understand and analytically reason the relationship between them. And from there, you move to RC to be able to master RC. So that's the sequence of studying, guys. Okay. And that is the sequence that we propagate at GMAT Viz also. All right. And this is how today, if you're starting off, then you need to start off here. Okay. So I've already spoken about if you're already at a 670 or more score, what you need to do. What you can also do is, if you've already prepared, if you've already done all of these, what do you need to do? You need to take module-wise tests to identify your strong and weak areas. By module-wise test, what do I mean? It means, let's say you take 30 SC questions, you take 30 CR questions, you take 30 RC questions, and you try to identify what are your strong areas and your weak areas. You score above 70% of, if you get 70% and more accuracy, those are your strong areas. Anything below 70% accuracy is to be identified as a weak area. All right. Say, for example, this is what you find in your module test. Okay, you get a 90% accuracy on your SC. So your SC is your strong area. The next strong area is CR, but CR is a weak area in that sense, and so is RC. So if this is the case, what should be your order of priority or your studies? So in this case also, keeping the sequence intact. What was the sequence? First SC, then CR, then RC. So in this case also, first you better your CR and then you try to better your RC, because you will need the SC and CR skills for bettering RC. All right. Clear? Absolutely clear, guys. Great. Now, what is the right approach to learning this? Step one, understand the method properly, guys. Okay. Understand the method used. Let's say understand the method to solve an SC question correctly. Understand the method to solve a strengthen question correctly. Understand the method to solve an RC passage correctly. Solve 15 questions, one at a time. Not do all 15 questions together and then go to the solution. No. Solve one question at a time. After every question, go through the solution. Review the explanation from top to bottom. Okay. See where your process matches with that process. See where you deviated from the method. And next time when you do a similar question, you avoid that deviation. Why we are asking you to do one question at a time? When you solve one question, you make a certain mistake, and then you learn from that mistake when you go through the solution. So that learning helps you to avoid the same mistake in the next question. And this way you keep learning through every question. That's the right approach to learning. All right, guys. Challenge that students face is the right source. Do you know a source which provides a solution in a methodical way? You might not. Okay. In my experience, I really haven't come across a course which does provide a very, very methodical approach. All right. I have not come across that. Most resources don't focus on providing methodical solution. They provide on just kind of providing you with stopgap. Somebody teaches you rules, somebody teaches you how to apply the rule, somebody teaches you some kind of tick cross method, somebody teaches you splits, and so on. GMAT Viz, as I've already pointed out, we concentrate on following the same approach. We make sure that every solution is methodical and logical and written out following the same format. All right. We spend a lot of time writing the solutions. In fact, I have written each and every solution myself so far. The entire GMAT Quiz course, the everything, right from the videos, the lessons, the questions, the question answers, the solutions, everything is written out with a lot of dedication and care, guys. I can vouch for that. All right. So the right learning curve is what, most courses would provide you with concepts and practice questions, but that's not enough. All right. What is very, very important is the application. As we've all discussed throughout this discussion, that it's very important to learn the application. So at GMAT Wiz, we first teach you the concepts through video lessons, very, very simplified video lessons. And you can see samples of those on the free trial link. And then before jumping right to the practice question, we have this concept booster, and nobody actually offers this, where we teach you to apply the concepts that you've learned here. We don't start testing you straight away. We teach you how to apply the concept. So let's say if you've learned the concept of ED verbal, okay, and there are 4 or 5 different ideas about ED verbal that you've learned. In the concept booster, we consolidate your learning. We teach you how to apply that ED verbal issues, and then you move to the practice questions to test out whether you've understood it or not. And in case you haven't understood, our AI driven platform will guide you back to that video lesson where you will again consolidate and then go back, and you'll not go back to learning the application again. We will be serving you a personalized quiz which will help you consolidate that issue. So that's the right learning curve, guys. You learn the right way, you learn it the most effectively. Okay, so how to master each module? You make sure you learn the right approach for that module. So if it's an SC module, if it's a subject verb pair module, if it's a noun pronoun pair module, if it's a modifier module, you learn the right approach, number one. Then you learn to master the approach on each topic by you going through the concept boosters, the practice quizzes, and all the while you are reviewing the solutions in depth while you're mastering the approach. And thereafter you take 4 to 5 sectional tests to fine tune your learning. All right, that's the correct approach. That brings us to the end of this session, guys. If you have any queries, please feel free to ask. So Vamshi, the module-wise test can be taken on the Viz quiz. All right, you can customize a quiz there to take the module test. Aditya, the logic I've already explained is, if you learn how to understand the meaning of one sentence in SC, then when you're doing the CR where you have to correlate the meaning of 3 or more sentences, you're able to apply your understanding of SC to CR. Once you have learned how to correlate the relationship between 2 to 3 sentences in CR, you're able to carry the skills of SC and CR to RC. That is why we need to make sure we go through the module in that particular sequence. Okay. You can register for the free trial on our platform. I've already given you the links. You can find the free trial link at the head of the chat box. You can find the link to setting up the free call with our strategy expert. If you want, you can get in touch with Piyush at piyush@gmatviz.com, who is our strategy expert and founder CEO. There's the WhatsApp number on which you can also get in touch with him, guys. Any other question? Feel free to ask, guys. And I'll just bring up a poll. Do let me know how you found this session. Did you find it helpful or not? So any other feedback would be very, very welcome. And any other questions from you would be welcome. Please go ahead. Okay. By the way, let me tell all of you guys, you have been such a wonderful audience. All right. Okay, Pooja, you want the PDF. All right, just hold on a sec. Let me quickly create a PDF. I really didn't think of it. It'll take me just a few minutes. I'll do that and I'll share the PDF with all of you guys. So just hold on for a moment. In the meantime, I'll be happy to answer your queries. Just a minute. Let me get this down. Okay. Yeah. Let me answer your queries in the meanwhile, guys, while that PDF is getting converted. Pooja, just hold on. Let me see. Shravan. Okay, I wanted to push my scores, so just again try to restart it. Shravan, what you could do is try to analyze what you did differently um, in those mocks. There must be something that you were doing differently. You could analyze those. Thank you, Aditya. Wasim found the webinar helpful to diagnose what he had been doing wrong. I'm so happy for you, Wasim. All the best for your preparation, all of you guys. Thank you, Aditya. Okay, let me share the PDF of the file with you. Just give me a moment. I'll have to upload it. Won't take very long. Hold on, guys. Let me just upload it and start sharing with you. Where have I placed it? Okay, there it is. All right, guys, I'm sharing the session PDF with you. You can download it. Aditya, I don't teach quant. I mean, I just don't. I don't teach quant. Our quant expert is Saqib. You're welcome, Aniket. Thank you, Mohit. Yes, thank you so much for that feedback, Mohit. All the best. Shravan, yeah, I think that could have been a big time mistake. You know, that's what we do wrong. You know, while we are practicing, we are using one method, but when we go for the marks, we throw all caution to wind and we just give in to our fears. So that is where you know, any exam is basically a test of your mental strength as well. All right. Um, any exam is a test of your mental strength, your patience. So if at that time you buckle under pressure and you forget all your method and strategy, things will not go your way. You're welcome, Pooja. So glad you found it helpful and amazing. Any other queries you have, guys? I'm there for the next few minutes. Yeah, Shravan, don't worry, and don't worry at all is what I'm going to say. I have come across a lot of similar students and I have pulled them out from there as well. So don't worry. I've had students who really came to me after a lot of depression. But honestly speaking, a setback should just be set and back. Throw it back. Relegate it to the back waters. Start anew. Focus on your strengths. All right. Take care of your weaknesses. Aditya, smartphones won't help you. You should just chuck your smartphone for the time being. But on a serious note, Aditya, plan your schedule every day. Okay, plan your schedule, plan your time, how much time you need to have a study plan. In fact, I think you can visit our website for the free trial link and draw up a study plan for you there. You need a proper plan and you need to act on that plan. So first, sit and decide how much time you can give on a daily basis. Uh, you can give a simple free mock, the official mock, to see where you stand right now, and then start your preparation. You're welcome, Aditya. So thanks a lot, guys, all of you, for being such a good audience, such a I would like to use the word, but such a nice and sweet audience, a docile audience. And I really wish all of you all the best in your endeavors. Whatever you do, be honest with yourself, admit what you're doing wrong, uh, understand your weak areas, build on your strengths, and just don't be scared of losing while you're learning. All right. Don't buckle under the time pressure. Let time be dictated by you. Don't let time dictate you. Aniket, you will find free resources on the GMAT Club. Lots of previous years OG questions are there, and you can solve from it. But honestly, Aniket, there's one small thing I would tell you: solving questions, quantities and quantities of questions. It's always quality over quantity. So if you're just going to solve questions, that's not going to help you, Aniket. You need to have the right approach to solve the questions, and you need a build up. I have known people who just uh, find out some hard questions and keep solving tons of them, thinking that if I can solve hard questions, I can also solve easy questions. It doesn't work like that. You have to gradually build your skill. All right. But you will find free resources on the GMAT Club. All right, guys. So, do I see any more queries? Okay, I don't see any more queries. So, once again, guys, all the best. We are launching a crash course next weekend on Saturday. You have a class on Saturday. We are starting off with the crash course on Saturday. The crash course comprises 25 live sessions. 50% of those 25 live sessions are verbal. I'll be taking those verbal sessions, and another 50% of those 25 sessions will be quant sessions. You will be given access to the entire quant and verbal course along with the entire question bank, all the video lessons, the concept boosters, and the practice quizzes. Wasim, starters can also join the GMAT Viz because we explain everything from scratch. All right. I mean, we don't explain what is a noun, but other than that, we explain things from scratch, as in what is the structure of a simple sentence and what do we mean by a stimulus, what is a premise, what is a conclusion. In fact, Wasim, you could go through our free trial link and also talk to Piyush. But I can say this for sure. I've had a lot of starters, a lot of freshers who had never taken the exam before, who had never even prepared for it, first time prepare, and they did not have any difficulty with the course. Don't worry about it. All of us need to make a start somewhere, Wasim. Okay. All right, guys. So wonderful to see you once again. Thank you very much. Have a good day. If you just begun your day, have a good night if it is night for you. And see you all sometime soon. I'm sure we are all going to meet sometime or the other on some webinar or the other, because we keep having webinars on YouTube's on Mondays and webinars on Fridays. And I'm sure once you have registered with us, you'll get links to those. So I don't see any more questions. Thank you very much and a good night. I'm going to end the session now.